All right, I think it is time for us to get rolling. So hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight for the April Wild Speaker Series, all about the Wild Nevada calendar. I am Grace Palermo, and I will be hosting tonight's talk. I am the Southern Nevada Director at Friends of Nevada Wilderness, and very excited to see some familiar and new faces here tonight. Before we get started, I want to respectfully acknowledge that here in Southern Nevada and in Reno, where our speakers are from, we are on the unceded and ancestral lands of the Southern Paiute or Nuwuvi people, as well as the Northern Paiute and Washoe people. What is now called Nevada is home to 27 federally recognized tribes of Indigenous peoples. And these peoples are the original stewards of the land and continue to care for our precious natural places to this day. I would like to invite everyone to take a moment to consider the legacies of colonization that have brought all of us here today. All right, so Friends of Nevada Wilderness. We are a statewide nonprofit, and we focus on, of course, protecting wild lands. And we focus on protecting wilderness areas, which are designated protected lands and are places that I think of as natural landscapes that are largely unaffected by people. And we work to protect these lands in a few main ways. One, we advocate by speaking up for these lands to get them permanently protected and manage to maintain their natural character and wildness. We also educate by sharing the values and vision of wilderness at community events, presentations like this one, and by finding common ground to protect our wildland heritage. And of course, how many people come to know us. We work with volunteers on the ground to help monitor, restore, and improve access to these special places. And so we host this Wild Speaker Series every first Thursday of the month by hosting folks who spend time in the outdoors or maybe experts on certain topics in the outdoors. And we really do this for people who are interested in learning more about nature and ways to get involved with conservation efforts. So I'm really excited for tonight's talk. We will be hearing from three phenomenal photographers, Kurt Kuznicki, Conor Phelan, and Antibus. And it is really through their lens that people around the world become inspired to visit and protect the spectacular landscapes of wild Nevada. And lastly, before I hand it off, just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you're not speaking, please keep yourself on mute so we can hear the presenters. And if we have any bandwidth issues, I may also turn cameras off so that our speakers come through clearly. And I would love to see any questions in the chat or comments throughout the presentation. And even if you don't have a question, we just kind of love to hear what stands out to you or kind of sparks an interest for you. All right, I'm very excited to hear from tonight's speakers, and I'm going to pass it off to you, Kurt.
Well, thanks, Grace. As Grace said, my name is Kurt Kuznicki, as it says in the little window right there as well. I am now the photography specialist for Friends of Nevada Wilderness. I've been a Wild Nevada calendar photographer since 2004, 2005, not always successful, didn't always get an image in the calendar. So, you know, I can relate to that. I started to produce the calendar in 2014. So the 2015 calendar was the first one. We're always a year behind. So I've been with Friends of Nevada Wilderness since 2004, first as a volunteer, then a volunteer board member, and then I was on staff in 2009, and I retired earlier this year. But you know, they're very kind. They let me hang out and you know, do cool things like this, which I am very, very grateful for. So now let's see if I can surmount the challenge of sharing my screen, which I can. Let's see here. Let's get rid of that. Don't do this to me. Let's see. Maybe I can outsmart it. I've got this little drop tab that every time I touch the top of my thing, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And I want to start with the guidelines and the selection process, which sometimes gets misunderstood or folks don't see it at all. So I figured I'd get this stuff out of the way first before we get to the pretty pictures. So we're looking for images of federally managed public lands in Nevada. Those lands in a natural condition, primarily affected by the forces of nature, you know, with or without people in the images. If there are people, you know, they should be engaged in primitive recreation or become part of the landscape. I've got a really good example of that I'll show you, not just mugging for the camera. You know, those are fun, but not what we're looking for the calendar. We only use images that highlight the natural world, so no buildings, vehicles, roads, cabins, or anything like that. I get some great astrophotography images of old trucks just beautifully lit up and cabins. And, you know, I absolutely love them, but they're gone in the first cut because that is not what we're looking for. Non-native species, every once in a while, I'll get a prickly email from a PhD botanist that'll tell me that next to that beautiful sunset are a bunch of invasive weeds that I neglected to see. So, you know, we're kind of mindful of that. Birds in an ornamental tree that's not native to Nevada, you know, things like that, things that you never think of, but there are people out there scrutinizing that as well. Regional images from around the state. You know, I love the Black Rock, I love Red Rock, but the more diverse areas we can come up with, the more rich the calendar is and more that we're looking for. Need them in a landscape format. So that's the horizontal format. High res, you know, I'm calling high res these days 10 or 15 megabytes. I'd love them to be bigger. If you have something smaller, you know, send it in. We can try it. See what happens. If I need higher res, there's ways to get it. JPEG files are great. TIFFs are better. RAW files are awesome. I have an asterisk by RAW because if you go into the guidelines, it'll say, and I got to fix this, that I prefer RAW. But actually, you know, I want to be able to see what your artistic vision is, where you want to go with the image, because, you know, all three of us could get the same image and we'd all process it differently. So I want to be respectful of what your vision is. So send me a JPEG along with the RAW so I can see what you're going to come up with. The process is I make the first couple cuts. I'm looking for these guidelines to make sure that it's on federal land, that, you know, it is basically a natural photo and it has technical correctness, which is a scary word, and we'll get into that a little bit. So after we do that, I take the images that have made the cuts and I take it to the calendar committee, which is made up of photographers and non-photographers, and then we start the process. And Wendy knows how contentious that process can be sometimes because we get emotionally attached to these images, you know, and we fight for the ones that we love, not just our own, but, you know, some other ones, which is a good thing because that shows that the images are doing what they're supposed to. So if you have any questions about any of these things, or you want to submit some images, please go ahead and send me an email. And it's kurt@nevadawilderness.org, KURT@nevadawilderness.org. And I will answer your questions and happily take your submissions. So now that we got all the rules, I had rules up there, but I changed them to guidelines because as photographers, we don't like rules. So anyway, here we go. So what makes a good photo? You know, it's subjective, and one person will have one idea and one person will have another. But to me, a photo has an emotional connection. When you see it, it just transports you back to that moment. One of my favorite, best images of all time is this one. Oh gosh, you're thinking, gosh, of all the things I could have done tonight, and here I am seeing this. So this is a picture of me and my wife before she was my wife. This is probably 1977, 78. This is a backpacking trip that we went on, and I see this photo and it just touches my heart and transports me back to that moment. No photo can be any better than a photo that does that. Now, is that a good calendar photo? Well, yeah, if you're doing the Kuznicki family, but maybe not Friends in Nevada Wilderness. So let's see what makes a good calendar photo. Although this is a major component, is that emotional connection. So I went ahead and I put down some stuff here, which makes a good calendar photo. We will get into these in a moment, but the photo here on the right, I think is a great photo. I think it's got a lot of the attributes. Now, does it have all of these values? No, but you know, it has some important ones. It also has negative space as opposed to empty space. You might think, well, my photo was much better than that calendar photo, but did your photo have enough room for the cover to put Wild Nevada on it, 2017? Maybe not. A lot of photos, you know, maybe the calendar photo isn't the best photo, but it has that room. So a lot of different things go into that, those images. And then we get down to the one that has the asterisk, the intangibles, and that's one that actually a lot of folks don't think about. So let's go ahead and get going. I've combined, well, anyway, follows the contest rules. Now, I showed this photo last night and everyone kind of laughed. It's like, oh God, where's he going with this? But believe it or not, a few years ago, I received a photo, not this particular photo, but I received a photo of some Las Vegas showgirls. They were doing the Rockette thing with the kick and the arm thing going. It was an awesome photo. It was absolutely terrific. You know, it was spot on. The guy probably had a $10,000 camera. And I sent it to him and I go, what's up with this? And he goes, well, you asked for Wild Nevada. And it's like, well, yeah, but obviously he didn't read the contest rules. So please just take a moment, read those rules. You know, they're pretty brief, and then, you know, your chances are better. If you have more photos like this, you can send them to me, but guaranteed they're not going to go too far. If you want to find the rules, go to our website, nevadawilderness.org/Wild Nevada Calendar, and it'll bring up those guidelines for you. And then you're off to a good start. So what I was going to say before is I've combined some of these so we're not here all night, and we can get through these things a little quicker. So technically correct, what do I mean about that? I'm not talking about a really expensive camera. I'm not talking about a real expensive lens, but it needs to be in focus. That's kind of important for a calendar image, especially since we're blowing it up. It needs to have a decent exposure, no highlights blowing out, the shadows aren't crushed, and it needs to have some kind of composition. I should be able to look at the photo and kind of figure out what you're trying to say with that. So that's important, you know. We'll get into storytelling in a little bit. And as far as original, I get a lot of images from the Black Rock where this photo was taken. And I gotta say, this one is one of the most original Black Rock photos I've ever seen. I've never seen with this giant S curve of the Quinn River leading back to King Lear way in the distance. You know, if I had two great Black Rock photos, and one was the playa looking at Razorback and the other one was this one, I would choose this one because of the originality of the photo. So those are two important values. It won't make the first cut if it's not in focus. Special moments. So boy, the photographer nailed this moment, absolutely 100%. To get the lightning strike and to get it so clear like that. I asked her, she did not have a lightning trigger. She was just snapping images and happened to get this. So, you know, a special moment, some magic lights, some rainbows, some lightning strikes, something like that, you know, that's one of the values that we respect. Realism and artistic expression, it's got to look realistic. Now, after saying that, I guarantee you these clouds did not look like this with as much detail, but I guarantee you it felt like this. They felt that scary. To sit there and witness that lightning bolt and hear the crash afterwards. So I get that. I want you to express yourself as an artist. The way I look at it is you can focus stack, you can use, and these are different photographic techniques. You can focus stack, you can go ahead and do exposure blending, composite photos. The way I look at it, if you didn't take your camera off the tripod and everything you did was on that particular composition, then, you know, that's okay. Don't Photoshop any pterodactyls or anything like that in there. Leave that alone and we'll be okay. But I want you to express yourself as an artist in your photos. I think that's important. Storytelling. So as the immortal Rod Stewart once said, every picture has a story. I don't actually know if that is true or not, but this one definitely does. When I saw this image, I said, man, this is the cover. I thought, didn't have to fight too hard for it because everyone agreed that it did. You know, the story to me is you have this person, they're skinning up the hill, are they making the top of the ridge? You know, is it sunset? Is it sunrise? Is it the first run of the day? Is it the second run of the day? But you know, this speaks to me of having fun in the wilderness. Tells that story. So, you know, if you can do some storytelling or if you have a photo like that, I think that's very, very valuable to the calendar. Composition, light, and color. This is one of my favorite images. They're all my favorite images, I'll just admit it, but this one is pretty special to me. This is one of Wendy's photos. Everything works in this. The composition, the light, and the color, everything is very harmonious. To me, it's this tree reaching up to the moon. It's just awesome. You know, where you have clashing colors or you know, the composition doesn't make sense with what the light you have or anything like that. You know, it's going to be tough. But with this photo, everything seems to work. You know, I would probably kill to take an image like this. So, you know, not everybody does this, but anyway, everything should work together in a photo. That's a really nice value. Conveys a feeling and earn the shot. So, you know, I look at this guy on the top of this mountain. This happens to be Current Mountain. This is from the early 2000s. This is a film shot. And I look at this guy standing on the top of the peak and I look at the sky behind him and it just blows my mind that these guys are still climbing, you know, they're going for it. And then I kind of look at the ridge and I'm thinking, well, you know, it's kind of a bit of a scramble there to the top. And then, you know, getting down doesn't look any easier either. And then I think, wow, where's the photographer standing? You know, he really earned this shot. This wasn't one where they just hopped out of the truck and did a few snaps and then got in. I know I'm going to break some hearts as a photographer. No one cares about how much time you spent processing or taking the shot. People just look at the shot. But this one says that, you know, this guy, this person, they went ahead and earned this one. So, you know, it's all part of that storytelling. Conservation. So we are a conservation group and we have a conservation agenda. You know, we want to protect all qualified federal land as wilderness as much as we can, or some other designation. That's why we're here. That's why people give us money. That's our job. So that agenda ends up in the calendar as well. So if you have that conservation component to the calendar, again, that's an added value to the calendar photo. This is Massacre Rim. one of the places in Washoe County that we're trying to protect. Dark sky status. Now we're trying to get NCA status for some of it, wilderness for another part of it. And the photographer got a couple special moments there with a double rainbow. So, this thing's all over the place. But yeah, that conservation component is very important. If you want to find out where you can, learn more about what we're at, go on our website, look at our campaigns. I guarantee you, we need photos from all of those places where we have current campaigns, whether it be Washoe County, Southern Nevada, the Desert Refuge, Nye County, all of those places we're interested in. So photos from there definitely have some added value. Exploration. So when I saw this shot, it was like, okay, that's January right there. That thing is freaking awesome. And then when I read where it was, I said, it's definitely going in. So there's a lot of people skiing the Great Basin. They're out there having a good time, but I don't know anyone who is skiing in the South Jackson. This happens to be one of Conor's photos. I think this is awesome. These folks are doing what we want people to do in wilderness, right? They're exploring, they're having fun. This is what it's all about, is doing things like this. So, we got the story going on, we got kind of the conservation message in that, and it just looks like such a great day to be there. So, if you got that exploration component in there. And then these people, we're not really focused on those people, but they are part of the landscape. That's what I meant, people either engaged in primitive recreation, which these folks are, and they've become part of that landscape. Intangibles. So after I make my cuts and I take those, I'll look at some composition things and things like that. Then I send it to the calendar committee. Then we go ahead and we vote on our best photos. And this whole process takes about, 3 hours with 30 photos or something like that. If we have photos that, we really like, then we look at the intangibles, the seasons. I may have 11 gorgeous photos, but I don't have any fall photos. I have one good fall photo, not a great one, but a good one. I'm going to take that good photo over a great photo because I need to represent the seasons. That's tough sometimes, but I need to do that. I need to represent all of the land management agencies. If all my photos are BLM photos, they're great, they're stunning. Well, I'm going to take maybe a good Forest Service photo or a good Fish and Wildlife Service photo or a good Park Service photo and go ahead and use those because I need to represent those agencies. I want them to receive credit for their hard work as well. So that's a thing. Location, I might have tons of stuff from Northern Nevada and nothing from Southern Nevada. All the Northern Nevada shots are great. The Southern Nevada shot is good. I'm going to take a Southern Nevada shot because I need to spread the love around Nevada. Eastern Nevada, Southern Nevada, Northern Nevada, we need to divide all of that up. Originality, if I got Red Rock, stunning photo of the sun coming up on rainbow, or I've got the classic Ruby picture from Ruby Lake or Liberty Lake with the person standing above it. I've seen like dozens of those. Doesn't take away from your photo, but if you have something unique that I haven't seen before from the Rubies, or I've seen from Red Rock that it's just magical, then originality is going to win out. And then we come back to those campaign needs. I don't know how many times the boss has told me, hey, you got to have something from Washoe. That's where our campaign is. Well, I got the Black Rock. Well, yeah, Black Rock's in Washoe, but it's not a campaign thing. So campaign ties in. Remember, we're a conservation organization. So that is a big play in those intangibles. So after we work all that, we whittle it down as close as we come to maybe 14, 15 photos, one for the cover that gives me a couple of spares in case we can't work out the color or something like that, or the person doesn't respond and give me a high res one. So after that, Sharon and I sit down and make the final decisions for the remaining spots. So, and this is not a mediocre fall photo. I really like that one. So insets. Some of the best photography in the calendar is in the insets. The wildlife shots in there are incredible. I kind of think they need more credit. They get this little tiny space for this just rockin' photo. But, I think in a lot of ways they make the calendar. We don't do too many wildlife main shots. Last year, I think we did the bluebird, which was really out of character for us. But Sharon and I just thought, man, we needed the bluebird of happiness after 2 years of the pandemic. We wanted something happy. Those shots were so moody. So we threw in the bluebird shot. Probably be a while before we do that again. But each one of these shots is deserving of a main shot. I love this one on the bottom. I call it the shadow people. I mean, it's just a fun photo. You can't help but look at that and smile and maybe want to be part of that experience. That's what we're looking for. So yeah, the insets, we need them, send them. You're not going to get any credit, but they're like, so well, you will get a photo credit, but you stuffed in that tiny little box. I can use 1x1s, which are squares. Those work out great because I have to fill those squares in the calendar. Panoramas are beautiful because I need to fill the space if I have a long block. And you may have a great shot for an inset, but it doesn't fit in the box. I was crushed a couple times when the guy that did the calendar before me threw my shots away because they didn't fit. So that's pretty rough. And why it does this on this one shot, I'll never know. So to sum it all up as far as those values, is this a great main shot? Maybe not, but I think it's a great photo. I think it's an awesome, awesome image. Technically correct. Everything from the front to the back is in focus. It's the story of stewardship. It's the story of conservation. It's what the major funding for our organization does, is get people out on the ground, volunteers to make a difference, And then the feeling of this photo, the smile, the joy on her face, that emotional connection with her. It's like, hey, I want to be there, I want to be doing whatever you're doing. I don't know what you're doing, you could be doing some horrible tasks like digging holes in the desert, but it looks cool. I want to do it. That's the message of the calendar photo. So if I had to boil it down and be technically correct, would be a story, would be a strong conservation message, and then that emotional connection, just like my favorite photo. Last word, remember your photography only has to please you and no one else. You don't need the best camera, you don't need the best lens, it just has to make you happy. Think of the reason why you made the photo in the beginning, right? It was that emotional connection you had with the landscape. It was that moment that you wanted to capture forever that made you point your camera in that direction, right? So what I want you to do is think about those moments that you have that are special, that connection that you want others to share, and send that to me, and let's see if it works out as a camera photo. I appreciate every single one of them. This page here, so the deadline, June 1st, remember that's the deadline, not the submission date. You can send them in right now. Send them to Kurt at nevadawilderness.org. Please review the guidelines. And this is a lot to throw at you, but maybe we can get this up on our website if it isn't already. nevadawilderness.org/Wild Nevada Calendar. If you're on Instagram and you're a Wild Nevada photographer, help us out. Use the hashtag WildNevada23. Not every photo on there is going to be a calendar photo. You might have someone in the middle of Wild Nevada celebrating their 23rd birthday, for all I know. So be careful. And then, as a shameless plug for my own photography, please take a look. If you're on Instagram, please take a look at my page, Nevada_outside. Give me a like, and if you like what you see, follow. It really helps me out on the dreaded Instagram algorithm. So with that, I would like to finish up with just a quick thank you to all the photographers whose images that I stole without their knowing to put this presentation together. All calendar photos, all good folks, and a lot of them I consider friends of mine. But a special thank you to everyone that submitted a photo, who's taken the time to send them to me, whether your image appeared in the cover of the calendar or didn't make the first cut, because it's without you folks, we wouldn't have a calendar. You raise the bar every year. The competition seems to get a little tougher, but don't let that scare you away. If you got a photo that stirs your heart, I want to see it, so please send it to me. So with that, I think it's time to let our guests speak and let the old guy kind of settle down a little bit. And I love photography, man. I get excited. So Wendy, are you out there? I think maybe I want to stop this, but before I do, and then I'll restart it when we talk about your photos. But please support Wendy. Check out her website. She's got some really cool stuff there. And again, if you're on Instagram, it's Wendolyn_A. So, you know, check out her stuff, give her a like, give her a follow if she likes doing, and if she's got anything for sale, buy it. Support your local photographer. So with that, I will stop for now. And Wendy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Good.
Thanks, Kurt. I'm humbled to be a part of this. It's
oh gosh, thank you for doing this. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself, what you do, stuff like that, what you like to do?
So yeah, I grew up in upstate New York. Connor and I were just talking about this kind of randomly. We're from similar areas, but I've lived out in Reno since about 2001, bounced around between Reno and Tahoe, and photography's always been like a big part of my life, just a way I connect with the landscape and with all the other activities I enjoy. But for work mainly, I work as a ski patroller and avalanche forecaster up at Mount Rose, and also teach avalanche education classes. And then I also work as a nurse. So got a bunch of different jobs there. I'm pretty much working all the time when I'm not out, you know, recreating and doing fun things. So
that's cool. So how long have you been a Wild Nevada photographer?
I think 3 years of submitting to the calendar.
Okay.
I know we were talking about this the other night. I think we did manage to link up through Instagram. So, you know, social media actually doing something productive for once.
You know, and I can't take credit for that. There was a guy that used to work for us. His name was Dan Alvey. And he said, hey, you got to check out this person's work, man. She's got some rocking stuff, right? So we're there looking at his phone. I'm like, dude, why don't you reach out to her and see if we can get some shots, you know? So Dan, you know, Dan was the guy that made the connection on that as well. So
okay.
So how long have you been a photographer?
I've been taking photos ever since I was a kid. It was this, you know, always this thing I've done, and I've become more serious about it as an adult, but it's always been something I've been interested in. My parents gave me a camera when I was like a pretty young teenager, and I, you know, was taking photos of pets.
Nice.
And butterflies in the garden and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. You went to art school too, didn't you?
I studied archaeology and art history at Oberlin College.
Okay.
So
No, that's amazing. So it shows in your work. You know, the one shot that I was ranting and raving about, the one with the harmonious shot with color and light. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful photo. So where do you get your inspiration from? What makes you take pictures when you're out in the field?
I see things that I find just beautiful and inspiring, like almost everywhere I go. Like even, just walking around the city and sometimes riding my bike to work. Obviously don't have my camera with me all the time, but especially when I'm out in the wilderness, like that's part of what helps me connect to the landscape, is just feeling like I can maybe try to like artistically capture that image that I'm seeing that, brings me so much joy, because it does bring me like a lot of joy and fulfillment just being outside in the wilderness, whether I'm just on a short hike with my dogs or week-long backpacking trip or rafting trip, or however I experience that. It's, and I love to try to capture those images and sort of, bring that back to share with others. I mean, I just love being outside so much, and I kind of want to like bring that image back and shout it from the rooftops about, how beautiful the world is. Obviously, very rarely do I actually like even begin to capture anything that represents like what I actually see, but it's fun to continue trying.
No, that's cool. So do you go out to photograph, or is that secondary to the activity you're doing?
I do a little bit of both. Like there are times when I go out specifically like with the intention of just taking photos, and then there's times when I throw my camera in and other activities that I'm doing, whether it's backcountry skiing or a rafting trip or a backpacking trip. I do like, there are particular places that I definitely know I always want to take my camera to, because I think I'm going to see something special or a special image. Honestly though, some of the like my favorite images are things that like, I don't know, I didn't expect to capture that image. It was just sort of a surprise. Like especially when you get those situations when maybe the weather is changing, it's the first snowfall of the season, or you have a storm and this like interesting light, and some of the times those are the most magical images, the things that are just very spontaneous.
Cool. Well, speaking of magical images, let me share the screen again, and we got to go through this process.
Oh boy.
Oh, I know. Boomer at the wheel, look out. Let's see. Oh, I don't want to go from the beginning. Let's go down here. Sorry about this.
I'm amazed I've only lost the internet once since I'm sitting in a van on the side.
Now you're doing, pretty good. Whoever you're poaching from, they got a strong signal. So go ahead and tell me about, okay. How come it didn't work? Oh, there we go. Am I back? I'm back. Okay. Something's frozen here. I'm sorry.
You're moving it around now.
I'm moving it around. I keep wanting to go from the current slide, but the web gods aren't going to let us do that. But we can all just ignore the distraction on the left. And this photo that we're looking at here, I mean, it's mind-blowing. I mean, you got color, you've got contrast, you've got atmosphere, you got composition. Why don't you tell us did you go out to take this photo, or did it just happen, or what's the story?
I did go out. I'm a sucker for snow and aspen trees. Like I'm a sucker for trees in general, as you probably figured out. So yeah, I think this was the first snowfall of the year last year, and I took the dogs out, and this is Mount Rose Wilderness, and like I cannot describe how much of a thrash sometimes it is. And you guys who take photos probably know, right? You like, I see this shot, but there's some sort of swamp or something between this picture. And this was definitely the case here of thrashing around in the snow. And, it was really heavy, wet snow. And so my camera got all wet, and I took a bunch of photos that day that are, the lens is all water spots and stuff from dealing with that. So I'm really happy I got this one.
No,
Yeah.
this is very, very cool. I hope you're gonna submit this one this year.
Yeah, I'll send that one in.
All right, perfect. So you've got some more, as my friends say, bangers here. So this one I think you submitted last year. I think I fought pretty hard for this one, but you know, the committee, you know, they went in a different direction. But this is the rubies, if my memory serves me right. And what lake is this?
I think is it Fowler Lake, or we were camped. We were on a backpacking trip and we were camped up at Castle Lake, and this is looking back towards that series of lakes that I can't remember the names of all of them now.
Okay.
But yeah, it was that's kind of a cool out of the way little spot to camp up there, Castle Lake. And again, I'm obsessed with trees. And I was also obsessed with this little orange tent that's way down there, but in the foreground.
Oh yeah, I see it.
But not quite.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. One thing we look for in calendar photos is something you could look at for the month, you know. And with this, you could do like little virtual hikes, you know. Like I can see the trail, and it's a trail, it's not a road, so you know it's in there. It's a sign of humans, but you know it's primitive recreation. But yeah, I didn't see the tent. Now when I look at it, I see the tent. Now I'm going to start looking for, maybe there's a fisherman over there. So
there's actually a couple tents down there.
Oh, okay.
This is a tip that I'll definitely say that I've learned is you definitely want to, if you're out overnight, like camp somewhere beautiful where you want to take photos, right? Because the best photos are sunrise and sunset. So if you situate yourself right in that area where you kind of want to take pictures, you don't have to get up as early. I hate getting up early.
There you go. So yeah, no, that's pretty. And then the next one, I warned you last night, I was going to tease you a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Because this happens to me all the time. You know, I got this stunning shot and then I put it on my screen, I start to process and I go, oh man, there's a fence down there. So yeah, no, I can relate to that, you know. I mean, we're looking at federally managed public land here. It's a stunning shot. I love the layers. You know, if you had that situation, you know, I would be okay with maybe cropping the fence out, you know, going ahead and doing that, because we're actually looking at the public land. You know, I think, and Hermie knows this probably better than I do, that Wallace Stegner's got a great quote that I think it's in the Wilderness Letter, where he says, you know, I just want to be able, even if I just stand at the edge and look in, it is still cool. So we got that. Where's this from?
This is east of Austin. I forget the name of those hot springs that are out there.
Oh, okay.
Driving on the road from there back towards Highway 50, and there was an attempt to camp out there during a storm, and camping ended.
Okay.
This photo was taken on the trail.
Yeah, that does happen. Well, you know, you've got some beautiful images. You're a very creative photographer. Thank you so much for you know, not only, you know, joining us tonight, but you know, for your work and being on the calendar committee and all of that stuff. You know, you've really raised the bar on the calendar. You know, it looks like you've got another great shot for this year. So, you know, I appreciate all of that. And then how could people see more of your work, the website and Instagram?
Yeah, the website and Instagram. I'm hoping.
Oh, she's hoping. I'm hoping she comes back. But anyway, not we have Conor. He's all lined up. I think he's got a solid connection. I'm going to try this one more time because this is really irritating me. But no, it's not going to work. So I'm just going to stop fighting it and move on. This is Conor Phelan here. Man, you know, I teasingly called him the other day the Jimmy Chin of the Great Basin. I mean, you know, man, you're doing stuff that other folks just are not. and if they are, they're not taking photos of it. So, I'm going to ask you some of the same questions that I asked Wendy before she disappeared. So how long have you been a wild Nevada photographer?
Well, last year was my first year submitting to the calendar.
Right.
But I suppose I've been out photographing now for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay. All right. So, man, it's taken me like a lifetime to get shots that aren't even close as good as yours. So, man, you're a quick learner. And then credit to Dan Alvey again, because he's like, hey man, I know this guy. He's out there and he's just doing this backcountry skiing and he's got some great shots. And man, you got to check him out. I'll get him to submit some stuff. And then I saw that South Jackson shot, and it's like, oh man, we gotta rope this guy in, You've got some really good stuff. So, so what inspires you? What touches your heart when you're out in wild Nevada?
Well, let me start by saying that I have some serious imposter syndrome following up your presentation and then Wendy's presentation. Truly,
none of those photos were mine. So
phenomenal photographers. So I'm quite humbled to be here. But
thank you.
I am actually really motivated by storytelling and documenting. I come from a family of documenters, as Wendy alluded to. I'm also actually from Western New York originally, and my mom used to work for Kodak back in the golden days.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And my great grandparents took photos in the early 1900s when they lived up in Southeast Alaska, and so it's just kind of, I like to think that it's in my blood to document and to tell stories. And but it's funny because I don't necessarily identify as a photographer. I identify as a skier, for example, and I like to take photos as I ski. And I think some of that just kind of cycles back on itself. And being there for those moments, I think, is what I try to achieve.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and I was guessing this as well. When I used to rock climb, we would call the camera the brick. Everybody wanted their picture taken, but no one wanted to carry it. And I teased Dan about the same thing when he goes backcountry skiing. I go, man, you got to take pictures. He's like, I don't want to lug that thing. So kudos for you for being the guy that's lugging the camera, because all your buddies want to get in the pictures, but none of them want to carry it. So,
oh boy, I wish. I'll have to play this recording for my friends, because they always make fun of me for having it in my pack. But then they're always more than happy to have nice photos of themselves at the end of the day.
No, it's, hey man, can you send me that? Then it's on their friggin' Instagram page. So I'm guessing that you go out to ski and then, photos happen when they happen, or do you go out intentionally to like shoot people maybe doing some stuff, or what's your plan?
Yeah, photography is definitely a secondary, but a strong secondary motivation for me when I'm out in the Great Basin. And I find that when I actually try to plan a shot, I'll be the first one to say I don't really have the technical expertise to really imagine, if I'm in this specific spot at this specific moment in time with these settings on my camera, it'll be a great shot. When I try those, it always just falls flat. And those are my least favorite photos. My favorite, the photos I'm most proud of, are actually those that I never knew were going to happen, and that do the best job for me personally, distilling the experience down to a single, just fleeting frame. And I think that, to the points you made in your presentation, Kurt, that very often if the photo captures that multidimensional complex moment for you as a photographer, then some of that will hopefully come through for the audience, for the viewers. And those are the photos that I find I'm most proud of when I'm out there. And I think that, interestingly, even though I'm going to these places, to these wilderness areas where which are so incredible because of their lack of human impact. I think that in an odd irony, I actually tend to like to have people in my photos and at some scale, because it makes it relatable, and there's still that human experience of the wilderness experience, and I like to celebrate that. But something I think is important with that individual being in a photo, or individuals, is there's something important to me about the anonymity of those people, and that still kind of lends the mystery of the wilderness and the unknown of the wilderness. And for example, that the cover photo from this past year's calendar, there's something powerful to me about the way that individual's hunched over, and you can't see their head and you can't see their face. And there's something I like about that, where there's a human, and you can really imagine being that person and being there with that person. But because you don't know who they are, it allows your imagination to really be able to run with it.
Absolutely. I look at that photo and I'm thinking, man, that could be me. Well, maybe not me, but it could be that. And without seeing their faces, they become part of that landscape. They're people out in the wild. It's not, Joe and Susan, right? It's people. It could be me. It's easier to identify to, and really helps to tell the story of all that. Yeah, no, for the short time that you've been photography, 3 years, man, you've got some just great stuff. Let's look at a couple of your images here. This one is magical. I mean, tell us the story of this one.
Yeah, so I'm actually like an adult onset hunter, as I learned more about the conservation and sustainability background to hunting, and this was with a good friend of mine up in the Black Rock Wilderness, and we hunted by bow for several days and we didn't harvest anything, but it was an absolutely magical experience nonetheless. And in this photo, I just, the contrast to me really stuck out. And this was one of those no-brainer moments where extremely thick wildfire smoke was just blanketing the valley. And it was incredible to us that the sun was completely up above the horizon and should have been blinding to look at. And you could just stare right at it without any kind of sunglasses or anything. And this was, this is probably 9 or 10 in the morning.
Oh, wow, really?
And I like my friend to that point about anonymity, the kind of the dark shadowing. You can't see his face. And again, I like that you can't see his face. It's not about him. It's about that landscape, and it's about being there in that moment. And that was a pretty magical time.
Cool. A lot of the times when you see a composition like this with the sun is always the main focus. It's bright, it's colorful. But when I look at this, I am drawn to him. That's the first thing I look at. Then my eye bounces over to the sun. I think that's really different. But yeah, the story, that you're out there, you guys are looking, you're in wilderness, you're doing it the right way. No, that's a really, really cool image. The next one here, I really like this, the abstract quality to this, the lines, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and it's like, it just makes you want to put on some skis and go screaming down one of those chutes or up and over one of those ridges. Man, where's this at?
This is in the Santa Rosa Wilderness, just south of Santa Rosa Peak itself, actually. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. I liked to I specifically zoomed in to not have the sky in this photo because I really wanted to accentuate that light dark pattern. And you're totally right that it just, if you're a skier, you look at this and you just you just want to be there. And yeah, I like the texture of this image, and for me as a skier, it really brings out some pretty powerful emotions.
The contrast of the light, the dark, the light, you know, you got that, you've got those layers, you've got those strong diagonal lines, you know, this is quite the composition here. You know, this is really cool. I like this. And it's simple. You know, it's a simple image, but there is a lot to that. Let's hop down to the last one here. And again, you know, a story, right? And the folks are part of the landscape. Like, you know, I said in the beginning, this was the example that, you know, I was talking about when I was mentioning, you know, the guidelines. So yeah, tell us about this shot, man.
This is in the Ruby Mountain Wilderness. And that the high peak in the background is Mount Fitzgerald, and I was with a group of friends, and we were doing a kind of a scramble climbing traverse along the ridgeline there, connecting several peaks. And there were several moments like this throughout the day. That landscape, for those who are familiar with it, I mean, it's just absolutely incredible up there. And there was this slight dusting of snow that had fallen, I believe, that night. So it just kind of gave a sheen to some of those faces that were protected to the north. And my two friends stopped up at the knob in front of me, and that kind of alternating depth of the photo really caught my attention, with that massive peak in the background. And this is a photo where I really think that their stance, it's oddly symmetrical, or opposingly symmetrical, which I thought was funny at the time. And I also really appreciate how their presence lends a sense of scale to the landscape that I think would be difficult to perhaps glean otherwise, where it's just rock, because you don't know how big those rocks are, or how, like, they could just be pebbles, but it's hard to tell without a human in the photo to really show, oh wow, that's a person out there. That means that, like, that mountain is that big. And I think it really helps capture that drama of that landscape.
No, absolutely. You know, really strong foreground. You know, it kind of leads you up to those people. And then, you know, that the way the mountain is in the background is, you know, kind of hazy. You know, it gives that depth that, you know, and it's so hard because you're working with this two-dimensional thing, right? And you're trying to make it 3D, and this image really pulls it off. You know, this is cool, especially the little bit of skiff on the peaks there. No, this is a good image. I hope you're gonna submit this one. So
sure. Thank you.
Never hurts, you know. Keep this going. But no, that's cool. So you know, thank you for the people that have hung in there with this. You know, I told you we'd get to some good photos once we got through my couple of ridiculous ones. But Grace, do we have any questions? Conor gets all the hard ones, I get the easy ones.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, either here on Zoom or on Facebook, we would love to hear them and try and answer them while we're all here. I think that I had a question, which maybe really anybody could answer, but just kind of, what is something that when you started taking photos, that you wish you had known, kind of for those of us more on the beginner side?
Oh man, go ahead, Conor. You can.
Oh boy.
You want me to take that one, or you got that one?
I can give my version of that.
Sure.
Which is I shoot with a fairly beginner camera. I'm not ashamed to admit that I very often shoot with auto settings, because I often don't have much time, and because photography for me is secondary to an activity that I'm doing, it could, like, quite literally put the day's objective in jeopardy if I was constantly messing with camera settings and hauling around a massive high-end camera. So I would say just have it with you, because you never know what might happen. And I think that some of the most striking images to me that from Wendy and from Kurt and from the calendar are the ones that are really unique in that, like, wow, I never thought that landscape ever would experience that kind of moment in time. Or these incredible, like that one that Kurt put up as an example from, I believe it was the Black Rock of the twisting river. You just don't think of there being water on that landscape. And it would be such a shame if you, because obviously photography is not for everybody, but if you want to do it and you were there and you're like, oh, should have brought my camera, right? That's like the number one. And then just take a lot of photos. I subscribe heavily to the take many photos and hope that one comes out well.
Spray and pray.
Pray and pray.
especially with action shots. You know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, I love to take photos of my friends when we're out backcountry skiing. So you have to work so hard to get in front of the group, or, you know, and like get in position. And I've definitely like put myself in a couple of situations where I probably shouldn't stand here to get a shot. But the other thing I wish I had known was how much time you spend editing and dealing with stuff, especially if you end up shooting in RAW, because if you shoot in RAW, you have to spend a lot of time editing regardless of how perfect the shot is. So it's a lot of post processing.
Gotcha.
You know, just to piggyback on that, you know, one thing that I'll try to get a shot, and especially in my younger days, and I'd miss the shot, and I would get frustrated, and I'd get upset, and it's like, oh, that moment's never going to happen again. But it's to remember why you went out in the first place, right? To enjoy the landscape. And I read this great thing by Galen Rao, probably one of my favorite photographers, and for sure the best film landscape photographer. You know, I put him right up there with Ansel, maybe even a little more powerful than Ansel. He said, you know, if you can't figure it out, if you can't make the shot, just put the camera down, man. Put it down and take a mental picture of the sunset or the snowstorm, or, you know, your friends skiing down the bottom of the mountain. You know, just enjoy that, because ultimately that's the reason why you're out there. You know, and to realize that, if I'd have realized that sooner, I'd have been a lot happier and maybe not so bummed out sometimes, because, you know, it's like, oh man, this is like over my head. So anyway, enjoy the landscape when you're out there, is what I would say to a new person.
Those are great perspectives. Thank you all for sharing that. I'm not seeing any questions coming in, so I think we can start wrapping it up. Is there anything that you would like to say before we close out for the evening?
How about you guys? Wendy, Connor?
I just want to thank Grace, thank you, and thank you, Kurt, for having us. It's really quite the honor, and of course, thank you to Friends of Nevada Wilderness for all that you do, because it's pretty special, and it means a lot in my life to be able to go out there and enjoy those places.
Well, thank you. Wow, we're going to have you back. Well, you know, in wrapping it up, you know, it's, and thank you for saying about your camera, because it's not about the camera. Don't get hung up in gear. Gear is cool, but don't get hung up in that, right? Because it's not about that. It's not about the best lens, you know, it's about you and the landscape. It's your experience, you know, it's that eye that you had, that there's that magical moment that you took a picture of, you know, that's all about. And like I said earlier, no one has to be happy with your photography but yourself, you know, so remember that when you go out, and, you know, share those images. You know, I know you folks are hoarding some good ones, so go ahead and send them in. You know, you'll make my job easier and the calendar better. And thanks for Wendy and Connor for coming on this. Otherwise, you just have to listen to me go on for an hour, and boy, no one would want that. And thanks so much for your images and all the stuff that you folks are doing. You know, you're getting out there. Every photo makes a difference. You never know what, you know, effect you might have on someone. You know, there might be some 12-year-old kid who we don't know that gets some of your shots and they turn into be maybe the best photographer of all time because of the inspiration that, you know, you put in their head. So thanks so much for that, and everyone who hung in there. And Grace, as always, for hosting. So man, for me, that's a wrap. I'm done. I'm gonna turn off my mic and go home.
Thank you very much, Grace and Kurt and Connor.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you all so much. And to everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And just remember that we host the Wild Speaker Series every first Thursday of the month with various outdoors topics. So mark your calendar and join us next month on June 2nd. And lastly, we promised to give away a Stanley thermos to someone who attended live. So I'm going to spin the wheel now and select our winner.
Oh my God. Wow.
All right, Hermie, it looks like you have won. So I will be in touch and make sure to get you that Stanley thermos. And again, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it, and are so glad to have you be part of Friends of Nevada Wilderness. We couldn't do what we do without you.
That's cool.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.